All right, it is 5 o'clock, so
let's go ahead and call to order the work session of the East Grand Forks City Council for Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. Please turn on your microphones, and would the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Mark Golstead. Here. Council President Brian Larson.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riopel.
Here.
Council Members Tammy Schumacher.
Here.
Ben Puksvinsky.
here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Donald Caseme.
Here.
Karen Peterson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Let's get right into the agenda here. The first item is seeking approval of the facility use agreement between the city and e-hockey development at a rental rate not to exceed $25,000 for the 2026-2027 ice season. Mr. Huttunen.
Okay, thank you, Council President, members, and Mayor. I have Mr. Judd Stouse here with me tonight to answer any questions about the program that he's looking to operate. Largely just framework of it here I'll walk through. Judd's looking to rent ice time at the VFW and the Civic Center through the winter ice season this year, with proposed hours of use Monday through Thursday, general framework 8 a.m. to noon each of those days. To be able to operate on and off ice skill development, coordination, and training. Part of the kind of where we came up with the rental rate on it to touch on, I think of importance is inside those 4 hours each day. At this stage of where Judd's at, and I'll let him talk more on it, but where he's at with kind of planning the program, it's not likely that he'll use 4 hours of ice each day at each facility. That the amount of use of the ice each day may look a little different. It might be an hour of organized practice and then give an opportunity for kids to get on the ice and just work on their own. It might mean for multiple hours a day there's nobody on the ice at all. And so when we looked at kind of proposing a rental rate for the facility, not knowing the exact number of hours of use and the exact number of ice cuts or ice resurfaces there would be a day, just kind of trying to put a not to exceed number in there. And some of that rate is based on Judd's thought on how many kids he may get enrolled. This program might look a lot different, and how many people or how many arenas even he'll use, let's say if there's 10 kids enrolled versus if there's 30 or 40 kids enrolled. So on year one of it, just trying to put the framework of a lease agreement in place that allows him to get into the facility and work with the kids that are interested in doing this program. And then we would monitor the ice use through this first year and through our Park and Rec scheduling, and be able to hopefully for future years have a better sense of exactly how much ice is used and where we could go with future rent costs if it calls for the need for that. So I'll just kind of leave it there for now and maybe let Judd touch on the program itself and any questions you all have.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Mr. Stouse.
Thanks. Thank you to everybody here. I guess first and foremost, this program is only able to happen because of the school now picking up online schooling. So I will work in conjunction, and already have worked in conjunction with the schools to make sure that obviously the kids are getting their schoolwork done. They have a choice to either go half-time online or full-time. And that'll be up to each individual family who decides to join the program. So I am working with the school to make sure that they get their schooling in as well, obviously, because to be eligible, you have to get your credits and all that kind of stuff. So I did meet with the counselors of school today, and it seems like it's going to work pretty smoothly with them. Secondly, like Reid, alluded to, the on-ice session work, so to speak, like while I'll be out there, would be an hour and 15 a day per rink. Now, obviously, the Civic gets put on later. The high school kids, it'd be 2.5 hours, but then we only be operating out of one rink. So my on-ice instruction would be an hour and 15 on Monday, as it sits right now. And it's kind of a work in progress. It would be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then Wednesdays there would be no on-ice instruction. They'd be doing other stuff that I have set up for them, within the program. So the on-ice instruction, even the ice cuts, I believe it'd only be one extra ice cut a day. because we won't have a resurface after my 1 hour and 15 minutes, aside from when we have the high school and the or middle school kids over at the rink. It's obviously new to our town, but it's not new around the state. It's not new around the country. There's a lot of different towns and schools or individuals or companies or whatever you want to call them doing this sort of thing. I know it's probably not the norm, but it's kind of the way things are going. And for us in our town, or me and our group of hockey players, I think it's important to continue to offer something like this to ultimately, hopefully, keep as many kids in town as long as possible.
Any questions for Mr. Huttunen or Mr. Stahl? We'll go to Tim and then Mr. Helms.
I'm assuming this is similar to what Moorhead does?
I honestly haven't looked into Moorhead's too much. I know when Matt was around, they might have did it a little different. They're over at the Shields Arena, and obviously Matt has left town now, or his boys have left and are on to the program in the U of M. So, but they do have something set up there, and I don't know exactly what they do there. I don't know if they offer halftime or full time. I think the most important thing for me and for the program to work is that now that East Grand Forks is offering online schooling, I think it works really well for both of us. This has kind of been a work in progress for 2-3 years, and with working with the superintendent now that East Grand Forks is offering it in-house or through the schools, it works.
Is it true that the coaches are not allowed to attend these sessions, or?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The high school coaches are not allowed to attend these sessions, or?
No, actually, if I wanted to coach Paul Messino to come out with the middle school kids, he could at any time.
Right.
During the high school season, he could come out at any time as well with the high school players. Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
Extra ice time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Tim. Mr. Helms?
I'm just curious, is this all age groups in the school, or is it just high school and middle school?
Just high school and middle school.
Just curious.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, I see none. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Reid, we'll have this on the agenda then for next week for a formal vote.
Yeah. So we'll put the final details of an official lease agreement together and have that on the agenda next week.
Yep. And it's a 1-year lease agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. Let's move on to item number 2 then. Discussion on e-bikes, motorized bikes, e-motorcycles, and motorized foot scooters. Chief Hedlund.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been kind of a contentious topic around town. I've had several council members talk to me about this. These types of vehicles are becoming more and more common, and they're being used in places that they're legally not allowed to. So I just kind of wanted to have this as a forum for discussion on this, just to get the information out. A similar pamphlet to the information that I have provided to council is going to be placed on the city's website. It's actually going to have more information. It's going to have some question and answer about legalities on bike laws and things like that as well. So it'll be a little bit more informative, but I just wanted to kind of stick to the main topics for tonight's discussion. Just try to get people aware of the differences, because there's, in recent years, become quite a few differences. E-bikes are traditional bicycles. You still have to pedal them to get them to go anywhere, but they have an electronic motor assist. Our current city ordinance allows up to a 1,000 watt electronic motor to be attached. State statute actually limits it to 750, so we are going to need to change our city ordinance. That wasn't the case at the time when we first put that ordinance in effect, but just a minor modification that should be fairly easy to do. There's 3 different classes of these bikes that can be used, and technically you have to be 15 years old or older to use them, and if you're under the age of 18, you're required to wear a helmet. If you move on to motorized bikes, that's kind of along the same lines. It's got to have an electronic engine typically, but they don't have any pedals. There's no pedaling at all. It's literally essentially a kind of almost a motorcycle degree, but just with an electronic engine. They have a top operating speed of 30 miles per hour. They're not allowed to be operated on trails or sidewalks, so they couldn't be used in the greenway. They would be illegal to use in the greenways. The e-bikes are legal in the greenway. These motorized bikes are not authorized to be ridden in the greenway. on or off the trails. If you do have them registered as a motorcycle, which is one of the requirements if you want to operate them on the streets, you actually have to have liability insurance. And as I mentioned, these are not allowed to be operated in the greenway, and those are typically speeds up to 30 miles per hour. Then the next category is e-motorcycles / dirt bikes. These look, again, they're electronic engines. These are going to have more of the look of a kind of a traditional motocross motorcycle or dirt bike. These are typically going to be capable of speeds higher than 30 miles per hour. They're not street legal, and they can't be used in the streets. They absolutely aren't supposed to be used in the greenway on or off the trails. And in fact, according to they're kind of generally not covered very clearly under Minnesota State Statute. Probably the only legal place you could operate them is on private property. So it's very limited on where you can actually use those particular types of bikes. Motorized foot scooters, those have also become much more common. They're electronic. You see people going around on them all the time. You have to be at least 12 years old to operate those, and if you're under the age of 18, you have to have a helmet. That's one person per scooter. Occasionally we'll see people with two people on those, but they are legally supposed to be limited to just one person. Those as of the way our ordinance is and the statute is written right now, those could be used on the bike paths in the greenway. I guess that's the biggest information I had, just kind of throwing it out there for some discussion, seeing if anybody has any suggested changes or anything else they'd like, but otherwise we plan on putting, as I mentioned, that just kind of expanded on this version of the document on the city's website in the near future.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief Hedlund? We'll start with Mr. Helms and then Mr. Gallstead.
Some of those, like those scooters, they go quite fast too. I see them sometimes up on the north end, and they're coming to intersections. They don't stop. They have to legally stop and obey the laws and all those things. It's like, or can it be just like a bike and go right on through? Or
I think they're treated largely like the bikes are if there's no other traffic.
okay.
So if they can, and again, I could be wrong on this, but I'm almost positive they can essentially come up to a stop sign if there's no one else there. They can slow down, again, yield to anybody who would be there, and then proceed on through. Like technically, you can do that on a bike, which I think most people don't know that because most of us think that bicycles are supposed to be operating the same as a vehicle or as a car. However, they're not exactly the same, and a lot of those types of questions will be answered in this expanded memo that we'll have on the website. I know it talks about bikes on whether they have to stop at stop signs, things like that. So I think it parallels with these.
Yeah. And I know some of those scooters or motorcycles, or whatever you want to call them, I know some of them are quite fast. And those there, I think, is there something out there where they actually have to have a actual permit to run some of those? Or not?
Yes. The ones the e-motorcycles that are / dirt bikes that aren't legal on the street, I don't believe there's anything that you have to do that, but they can't be operated on. It's private property, so what you can do on private property is much different than what you can do on the city street. The motorized bikes, those ones that are allowed to go up to 30 miles per hour, those you do have to have a permit. And that's, I believe, it says motorized bike permit, either a driver's license or a motorized bike permit. And I think you'd get that permit through the state.
Thank you. Mr. Gallstead?
Thank you. I know the chief has talked to me about this a little bit. Realistically, the definition that would need to be modified would be that on the e-bike. However, if we don't want some of these others to be listed, we could list them under a motor vehicle or specifically list them under whatever they are if we don't want them down in the greenway or on the bike trails. Because right now, with the advent of all of this stuff in the last few years, it's kind of cloudy on our definitions and what a motor vehicle is or what one of these bikes are that are allowed on bike trails and such. So I was just kind of waiting for a discussion here so that I knew to the extent that we wanted to modify the ordinance, if at all.
Sure.
Yeah, this information that I presented is largely based on state statute. We can make our city ordinances more restrictive than that, but we can't make them less restrictive. That's why we have to change the e-bike one as far as the engine size. But for the other ones, if we were to decide we don't want any of them allowed in the greenway, you could make that rule too.
Yeah, I would. I've noticed a sharp uptick in the number of e-motorcycles in particular, motorized bikes as well, but particularly the e-motorcycles are everywhere, all over the Greenway. And what is the penalty, or what, if someone is caught, and is there a fine, or what happens?
I'm honestly not sure off the top of my head. I guess I didn't come prepared with that.
No, that's okay, but there is some sort of penalty, I would assume, or a...
Typically, if if they're caught and they're cited, I'm not sure, but I believe if they're a misdemeanor, because that would be a criminal penalty, it would be a $1,000 fine, 90 days in jail, or both. That would be the max. If they're a petty misdemeanor, which some of our penalties are, that would be a maximum of just a $300 fine. And I just have to look and see how we have them all designated, because they're different throughout our code.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be good to really clarify our code and our ordinances there. These bikes are so common, and it just seems like they're becoming more and more common every week now. It will be in the summer. They're everywhere, and they look like a lot of fun, but I think it's inevitable there's going to be a serious injury. And if we can prevent that by having a little bit more stricter enforcement, I think it's for the better.
And realistically, the enforcement, and the chief can echo this, and I don't know if you want to put it out there, but the only time you're going to be able to enforce it is while they're going there, because right now we don't have the ability to be down on that area to enforce it. They don't have the means to be able to do it right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Reid.
Yeah, Councilmember Larson, just the ordinance was in the packet, so I scrolled to it. The penalty for the Greenway ordinance is a $1,000. It's a misdemeanor, so it's a $1,000 fine, or 90 days in jail, or both, as City Attorney Gall said reference.
Maximum. Yeah.
Maximum. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any
other
other
suggestions or questions or suggestions on how you would like to see us move forward with this information?
I think continue to get the word out is really important. It needs to be connected with the parents that are obviously buying the bikes for the children, as well as the adults on them. But I'm really worried there's going to be a serious injury down in the woods along the Greenway. Mm-hmm. EMS won't be able to get there, and we're all going to feel terrible because something could have been done potentially. And so that's...
If people are content with the keeping our ordinances in line with the state statute, I can put out this information as is. But I guess the biggest question I have is, does anybody want anything additional included in what is not allowed? Not trying to make any suggestions, but for example, the scooters are illegal in the Greenway on the bike paths. But do you want to continue that?
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
And maybe this will work, I don't know for sure, but is it possible to put signage out on the greenways? I don't necessarily think that it's the best, but even when they're entering the greenway, or can we post where the kids are currently actively going over and back in that section where they are being heavily utilized, to make sure that parents are aware? I mean, yes, we're discussing it here. Yes, it is on our webpage.
Yeah.
But they are going to plead ignorance.
Yes.
If we don't make it up in their faces, in my opinion. I
believe Mr. Stordahl had talked about possibly doing some signage at least one location, but we haven't really gone into any depth on that.
And I know kind of like what they did with the hunting thing, where they put that QR code on there. Is that something that we could do, just even put up some of those signs with the QR code that would take them straight to the ordinance?
If that's something the council wishes to do, we surely can do it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great idea. Help to just raise the awareness out there. Yep. Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. I would suggest that we work with the school system to they can communicate it with schools. They're also really willy-nilly about using their text messaging system to promote stuff that isn't necessarily school related, and we could ask them to
I think that's against the law, isn't it?
to use that system. They've sent stuff that shouldn't go out, in my opinion, already. But just as an FYI to parents. But you might be right. Regarding the scooters, is there different classes of scooters?
Not that I'm aware of. That's possible, but there isn't anything that's defined in state statute or city ordinances.
Yeah. Like my son has one of these electronic scooters, and it tops out at 12 miles an hour, which I think is a reasonable speed.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I don't know how fast like the bird scooters go.
Yeah.
If they go faster than 12 miles an hour, say they get to like 15 or 18, that's probably too fast for the greenway, and those shouldn't be allowed. So if it's possible, depending on the size of the scooter, I'd support something like that.
Okay, Mr. Riopel?
I think Chief's looking for us to say yes or no to conform to Minnesota statute.
Well, I guess if you're largely content with the information that I have here, we can get that out, and we can always modify it. That's the nice thing with electronic forms. You can easily modify it if we have things change down the road. So we can continue to look into things like Mr. Bartschwinski mentioned with are there classes. We can, if not, we could always develop classes. As I said, we can make our ordinances more restrictive than state statute. We just can't be less. So if there aren't classes already, we could always create them. I'm not sure. I'm the furthest thing from an expert on these.
I have no idea if there's different.
I'm not sure, but it's something we absolutely we can look into that.
It's a tricky one to communicate, is like the e-assist bikes with pedals,
Yep.
I think are generally accepted.
Yes,
It's a great opportunity for everyone to get out there and enjoy the trails. It's when the pedals go away and they become a dirt bike. Now that's not okay.
Yep.
So we got to find a way to get that messaging out there to the community.
I guess this was the first step on that, and we actually got some pamphlets that I've ordered through the Department of Public Safety for our officers that they'll be able to give out. There was a misunderstanding between me and DPS, obviously, in my order. I was expecting to get some packets of 50. Instead, I got one form.
Oh.
So we can make copies, but their nice glossy form would be better, obviously. So,
Sure.
Hopefully, I have some more of those for our officers to be giving out as an educational when they encounter people doing this as well.
That'd be great. Go ahead, Tammy.
I like Karen's idea of signs. I mean, if people will claim they don't know. But like I ride my bike, I've seen Brian on the trails, like Peabody back there, and I was riding on a Sunday afternoon and 10 of those things came over the dike down towards the river. So I mean, like, and you say it's trouble enforcing it. Like, would you like me to call the police department
Absolutely.
and say, I just witnessed,
Yep.
like, what do you want people to do? Call it in?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
And then,
one of the best ways, and especially if you know where they're coming from.
right.
Coming from, going to.
Okay.
If you know which house they came from,
Yeah.
at least then we can have an officer go talk
Sure.
to the people that are riding and their families.
And I'm just scared somebody's going to get hurt.
That's the biggest fear.
And then kind of ripping up the dike too.
Yeah, and that's
They're having fun going up and down and up.
Stordahl's staff standpoint, that the damage to the levee system is, of course, very important, and that's something we want to avoid.
And I would say
Our department's perspective, obviously,
be as strict as you can with whatever, works. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Tammy. Mr. Helms?
Yeah, Chief, I just got a question. The 1,000 watt down to the 750 watt.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually do? Does that slow these things down, or is
I
that what
think
we're
that
looking
was-
at? Is that?
Basically, yeah. And in reality, I think it's just a matter of semantics. I think probably, I'm guessing the majority of the e-bicycles are probably, I'm guessing most of them are already that 750 or less.
Okay.
It's just because that's what the state statute is. We're not technically allowed to make our ordinance more lenient. So
Sure.
the state statute says it's like we can't decide if they say the speed limit on Highway 2 going through town is 35 miles an hour, we can't go, well, we want it 50.
Yeah.
So we can't arbitrarily do that because we can speed limits wasn't a good example to give, but you can sometimes make it more restrictive. You can't just make it more lenient. And this is in essence making it more lenient because it allows a more powerful engine. So I think it's a matter of Mr. Gallstead spending a few minutes just changing that little bit of the ordinance with, and he was just trying to clarify, do we want to change other aspects of the ordinance as well? If he's going to be working on the one and potentially make other changes, he'd rather do it in one time rather than have to repeatedly change it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mayor Olstead?
Good segue, Chief. That was my question. Looking through this, do we reference the new marijuana regulations and stuff within our Greenway ordinance? I mean, do we reference back to it, or should we reference back to it? Make sure it's in there?
As far as use of it?
I'd have to look at that, but I mean, I think that there's reference to alcohol.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
what
if
I
there's
saw.
anything referencing cannabis, other than the fact that our specific cannabis ordinance says that you can't use them in a public place.
I didn't know if we want to reference it back to that. That's what I'm asking. So,
Yeah. Probably a good idea to make an amendment in that section.
till then.
Thought about that.
Any other further thoughts or comments on the e-bikes, motorized bikes, e-motorcycles, and foot scooters? Okay. Well, if there's any thoughts on the ordinance, if we'll share that with Reid here, looks like we'll have an amendment one way or the other to address the wattage, and that would be the right time for any other clarifications.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Let's move on to item number 3 then. Authorize staff to advertise and begin the civil service hiring process for a stormwater wastewater operator position. Mr. Stordahl.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. We had a resignation of one of our wastewater stormwater operators, and we would like to fill that vacancy. I'm asking for council to authorize us to start the hiring process.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Any questions for Jason on the request? Mr. Helms?
Jason, is that something that, do they need a degree or anything on that, or is that just a job
They don't need a degree, but there are certain certificates, since our city is considered an MS4 city, that are helpful if they have or can acquire while having that. They also need a wastewater operator's license. If they don't have one, they need to be able to acquire one.
So does this person work in the treatment plant then, or how?
No, they work on the public works office, but they work on both wastewater, like lift station and sanitary infrastructure, as well as levee and levee structure, and then all the, they deal with all the regulations that go along with stormwater flow and ponds and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? Okay. I see none. Thank you. Let's move on to item number 4 then. Approval of the micro business retail registration for Skoll, Minnesota LLC, doing business as Mellow Mood, located at 300 3rd Avenue Northeast.
All right, thank you again, Council President, Council members. Kind of a 2-part agenda item here with cannabis updates on both of the applicants that were selected for cannabis registration. The first one to touch on is Skoll, Minnesota. This is just generally an update for you all. They have completed the renovations of the building at 300 3rd Avenue Northeast. Our building official has issued them a certificate of occupancy, and subsequently the company has applied for site registration from the Office of Cannabis Management. We were notified through Ms. Ellis's office last week that they have their licenses ready to issue, and they are just a couple steps away at OCM. They need to have a final inspection by the Office of Cannabis Management, and once they have that done, they'll be issued their license, and then it could effectively open for business. On the city side, we gave them preliminary approval to move forward, telling them that they would get a registration when they complete these steps. So on our end, once we know that they have full licensure from the state, then we'll have the council approve, or we'll bring to a council meeting for your approval, issuing them the required local registration. So that's the step there. The last that I spoke with, though, the folks at Mellow Moods, they were hoping to be able to open by June 1st, knowing that our next council meeting is June 2nd. Of course, that can't happen until they get the registration, but if that gives you a sense of timeline, I'm hopeful we'll get official news this week that they've had their site inspection completed and we can have it on the agenda for next Tuesday for consideration. But it'll happen fairly quickly over the next couple of council meetings, if not as quickly as next Tuesday. So that's Mellow Moods. The other part of the RCA is trying to provide an update on the downtown location at 302, 304 Demers Avenue. They, as you can tell when you look at the property, they have not made as much progress as Mellow Moods has. As of last Thursday, we did receive notification from the contractor hired to complete the renovations that they were ready to send a plan set for our review, for our building officials' review. We have received that plan set now. That came in either late Friday or over the weekend. Our building officials and Ms. Ellis have not reviewed that yet, but they'll get into that as quickly as they can. Haven't received official word from Red Iris LLC or from Office of Cannabis Management on the status of where they are at with licensing. We know that in the process, just like Mellow Moods, they can't finish licensure from the state until they have their property ready to serve and operate as a cannabis dispensary. So there's still a period of time away from before that would happen. I would say at this point, I couldn't place a good timeline on when that would happen. There is a deadline facing us that we will need to address, and spoke with Mr. Gallstead earlier today about it. Something we'll have to, I think, still come up with an appropriate plan of how we want to deal with it and approach it. When we issued the preliminary registrations back in September of 2025, it is listed in our ordinance, and it was listed in the materials we sent to this company that they had 6 months to proceed with licensure from the state of Minnesota in order to be able to start operating the store. And if they didn't get it done in the first 6 months, they could request a 90-day extension. That 90-day extension takes them to June 1st, next Monday. So in that original ordinance passed, it states that we could offer the registration to the second or the alternate applicant. The alternate applicant in this case in the downtown district was also selected at the same property. So I have no recommendation today on what to proceed with, but I would be happy to take feedback from any of you on what your feelings would be on how to proceed with that, and try to communicate with the company that has the initial registration here. The one thing that I will say before I kind of hand it over for any questions or feedback on that front is when we put the ordinance in place that gave that timeline, that was issuing this preliminary registration as a reminder to allow companies to start to take the next steps on acquiring or getting in position to acquire the properties they would need in order to build and outfit the store to open. They can't, again, get licensure from the state until the property is ready to go, ready to be opened for a final inspection. And none of us had any idea of timelines of how long that would take. There were a couple of other counties that I looked at as examples of ordinances that they had put in place that had a similar timeline to this. So that's kind of where the timeline was born from. We didn't want a company to acquire one of our 2 registration slots and just sit on it for years with no action, right? So that was kind of to try to put the time prompt in there. But open with that said, seeing that they're continuing still to try to make progress and not knowing a defined timeline of how long this process takes with OCM, just with those things in mind, be open to feedback from all of you and certainly from Attorney Gallstead on how to proceed.
Okay, thanks, Reid. We'll start with Ben.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that would be my first question, would be for Ron. What recourse does this second entity have? And then Reid, sounds like they were both, this alternate was approved only for this location where the Spud Junior used to be, correct?
Correct.
And it's currently controlled by the first entity, Red Iris. So even if we were to tell Red Iris that, hey, we have to give it to this other entity, they're not required to sell that property. So the other alternate is kind of dead in the water as it is anyways.
Right. That's certainly a consideration I would have in mind. Yeah.
So for me, I would say as long as they're making concerted effort to move forward and not just sitting on it, I don't really know if there's any path forward. But I guess for Ron here, what's the risk to the city if this alternate comes forward and says, hey, we want our shot?
Mr. Gallstead, did you have any response?
Well, I don't know if I'm at liberty to really discuss that later.
That's okay, too.
At this point, I am in contact with the attorney for the Red Iris. I've been discussing a couple of different things with them, and I'm just kind of going forward with that. I wanted to kind of hear the group tonight. I have to review our ordinance again. I guess I haven't looked at that in depth, and I will, and then I can always come back with a recommendation if it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Olstead?
One of the questions I have too is, let's say that, well, the building hasn't changed hands, my understanding. If I'm incorrect on that, some incorrect can, so they're not, the Red Iris isn't holding that building hostage as you would, so. I was maybe, unless it hasn't been recorded yet.
Yeah, I will say to both points, I don't know where it stands. I haven't received an official update on that.
Sure.
On if it's officially closed or not.
So my other thought is, let's say we put a hard timeline on this, and if it doesn't happen, are we required to give it to the alternate? And what does that look like? Required to give it to the alternate at the same address? Or can we say, well, we already have two, that's what we wanted in the first place? No comment?
I'll have to look at that.
So I guess I would want to make a hard deadline on these people. I don't want it to drag on if they're not going to do it and they can't get it done with the state. Let's just move on. It's sad that we lost a business because of this and it's taken this long, and that's the bad thing.
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to say is I know that it hasn't closed quite yet. I know it's under a purchase agreement right now. So whether that's transferred hands or not, it is under control of Red Iris at this point because of the purchase agreement.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Riopel.
I like the idea of putting a hard timeline on this because they could drag it out for 2 months, 6 months, a year. Possibly, do we have an option to fine them for their delay? Because they were aware that it had to be done by a certain time, correct?
Yes, they were aware when they were issued the notice of preliminary approval. The deadlines were listed in that letter, and they've been followed up with multiple times.
So they're doing just what we didn't want them to do. They're delaying it out farther than what we wanted them to. I don't know. You have to think about that.
Okay. Mr. Helms?
Yeah, Reid, did you say that their 90 days is done June 1st? Is that what you're?
Yeah, the 90-day extension from the original 6 month that date is June 1st.
Man, hard to believe it's went that fast already.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Reid, if I understand what's happening here, they're at a point now where their contractor has submitted plans. Mm-hmm. They're essentially ready to go. as soon as the building permit is issued and paid for, we would assume that they'd be ready to go. I would think that they could deliver a schedule at that point, with a realistic opening date.
Yeah, and I would think so as well. The fact that they have now submitted plans for our review is, I think, a major milestone step for them. I don't know where that means they stand on their finalizing their due diligence to close on the sale or the purchase of the property. Haven't received a real viable update on that in a number of months. But I know that Ron has had some contact with somebody on their side as well. To finish the thought, yes, I would say the fact that plans are submitted, it's a major milestone, and work would progress fairly quickly.
Just to comment, I have been working with the attorney out of the cities. There's been some, I guess, delays regarding the purchase. I don't know if it was necessarily anybody's fault. So we're going through and working on that right now. I've been in contact with them. Reid and I discussed this a little bit earlier at our staff meeting. That went a little bit long, and I haven't had a chance to make that phone call again. I will be calling her tomorrow and kind of relaying the information that we're discussing tonight, and get at least some feedback from their attorney.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. This is a question for Reid and maybe for the chief as well. With the one that opened up in the Burger King location, any feedback on how that's going regarding anything whatsoever?
We've had a few minor interactions where people have used false IDs. They've been very easy and very good to work with to this point.
Okay. And then I would ask for feedback from the community on how they would like to see us move forward with this, because this ordinance, I think, is pretty clear about what we've expected of them. And there have been developments in this entire process that were unexpected from the city's behalf. So, considering what the mayor said, is that an option? So, and how does the city feel about it? So, thank you.
Okay, any further comments? So Reid, there's a lot bundled up here. Looking at the next meeting, will we have an action item likely regarding mellow moods? And then we'll continue to discuss Red Iris when there's a bit more feedback from yourself and Mr. Gallstead?
Mr. President, yes, I would, at this point, expect mellow moods to be an actionable item next week. The only reason it wouldn't be is if we haven't received notice from the applicants, mellow moods or OCM, that the site inspection is completed and adequate. We would want to know that, I think, before we finalize registration.
Okay.
But assuming that gets done this week, it'll be on the agenda for approval.
Okay, that's good. And then regarding Red Iris LLC, likely no action items next week.
Right. I'll have to just work day by day this week with Mr. Gallstead and determine how much information we can gather.
Okay.
And bring it back for a future discussion.
And at that point, June 1 will have come and gone.
Correct.
So we'll have to kind of act accordingly, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Reid, you've got what you need?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, let's move into item number 5 then. Request to create ad hoc fleet replacement policy committee. Mr. Huttunen.
Okay, thanks again. So based on the discussion at our work session a couple of weeks ago, was a lot of good discussion on the fleet replacement policy with the police department, and kind of led to a bigger discussion about putting a committee in place. I did draft and reviewed this with staff, kind of a purpose and goals objective statement for the policy committee. And recommended a number of staff members to be included on that committee, as well as listing 2 city council members to join for that work. That is for your review and certainly can be modified or adjusted as you see fit. I think the biggest question and maybe discussion point I would like to try to raise through the discussion tonight is the ultimate goal and work period of the committee. There was some discussion on both sides of it, and some of it might just be terminology, so I want to make sure we understand right. At the work session a couple weeks ago, there was mention of an ad hoc committee or just committees as a whole, right? So that's the first question is the goal of the council for this to be set up as an ad hoc committee, put in place for a specific purpose, i.e. to develop a fleet policy that would be adopted by council and then sort of handed to staff for staff to work within that policy and to bring recommendations to our capital improvement plan and to budgets on an annual basis for consideration and discussion and with the entire council at a budget meeting. And once that new policy is adopted, that ad hoc committee's work would be completed, and the committee makeup as it's kind of listed here would be sunset, or is the desire to form more of a standing committee that there are for year over year 2 city council members appointed to this committee by the president of the council and approved by the council members like we do at our annual business each year, and these staff members, and we meet originally to develop and adopt a policy and then meet ongoing year over year as part of our budget work and discussion. I think number one, those are kind of 2 different things in my mind. I want to make sure we understand what the goal and the objective is, and then 2, after that, just any feedback on the framework of the objectives of the work group.
Okay, thanks, Reid. Let's take the first one then, ad hoc or standing, and we'll start with Mayor Olsted.
I think the discussion that we had, I think ad hoc would probably be my suggestion to go. Reason why, I think the framework can get put together and handed over to the department heads and follow that framework. It doesn't need to come back every year to this committee to have a discussion on it. Once we have our policy set and procedures set, I think that at some time down the road, if there is another wish to put it back together, they can do so at that time. But I don't think the use of time to have a committee meet all the time talking about this, I think just like we do with the finance committee, I think we just use it to make sure that we're setting it up correctly and then hand it over to the department heads to make use of it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments or thoughts on the committee ad hoc or standing? Okay. I would agree. Ad hoc seems to make sense here. Let's get the policy set and work the policy. And then the second half of the question, Reid, was looking for some feedback on the composition and the responsibilities of the committee.
Yes, just with what was included in the packet, if there were any comments or things that I missed or that you think needed to be included. And certainly a lot of the policy framework could be discussed at that committee level, so maybe more focused just to the makeup of who's included and process.
Feedback on what's proposed for the composition or the responsibilities of the committee?
I guess I would ask this department heads if they want to have like the mechanics or other employees involved in it. I guess what their wishes would be. I mean, do they want the feedback just come to the department heads and then go to the committee, or maybe someone has a response with that.
I'd be comfortable either way. I'd like our mechanics to be involved in it. In one way or the other, whether that be myself or other department heads speaking with them outside of the committee meetings or bringing them in. I think either way would be just fine.
I would agree. I was initially thinking that they should be a member, but after reading Mr. Huttunen's document and having them basically as a resource, I'd be fine with that as well. I don't have a strong preference one way or another.
Go ahead, Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. And I think maybe to that point where my thought was too is, I think in my view, this was the group of people that was going to work on writing this policy. And then when the policy is in place, it may mention the need to have the mechanic or the foreman of the various departments more intricately involved in the execution of the policy, let's call it. I see a lot of value in that. Again, for the sake of time, to write policy, maybe we invite a mechanic to one of those meetings, but they probably don't have to be at all of the meetings. We're working through the framework of the policy itself, was where my thought was. Sure. But certainly I think they'd be valuable to have it included at certain times.
Reid or anyone, what's your thoughts on having a community member serve on the committee as well? Not an elected official, but just an interested individual or two that's a resident of East Grand Forks.
I don't think we need that. If we get 2 elected council members on there, they're representing the people already.
It's already a large group as it is. 8
Yep.
is.
It's just adding more.
You wanted to have an odd number? Is that a best practice? Not assuming that this group actually votes. Maybe there's just an arm wrestle at the end to wrap up the policy. Maybe you vote. I don't know.
I think at that point, if there's any sort of a disagreement, we could roll it up to the president of the council or the mayor. We could ask for their opinion to
Sure.
break any ties if there is such a thing.
Yeah. Likely it gets worked out, right?
Yep.
Okay. Ad hoc, and I think we seem comfortable with the makeup.
Yep.
Any other questions, Reid, before we move to the next item?
None for me. Thank you.
All right, okay. Thanks, everyone, for your work on this. All right, let's move on to item number 6 then. Request to award the downtown parking lot improvement project to OP Construction in the award of $29,800. Mr. Stordahl.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. So the downtown parking lot that we're referring to, it's in the packet there, location, but it's adjacent to the levee downtown and near the DNR building for the campground. There's 3 areas that are in disrepair right now. Really, the whole parking lot has to be addressed at some point. It's dried out, cracking up, and something else will have to take place. But these 3 major areas are really a safety concern. Areas are pretty deep, the potholes, and something needs to be addressed there. I'm bringing forward this suggestion or request to have OP Construction repair these 3 areas. However, we typically haven't used street reconstruction dollars much with parking lots. It's been pretty much just for roadways. I know there's been a lot of discussion about downtown and other parking lots as well about what funds we use to repair them or replace them. So I'm asking and requesting for it to be done using street reconstruction dollars, but it may stem further discussion, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Any comments or questions for Mr. Stordahl? Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, I have one that might be more toward Reid maybe, but at one point in time we talked about come up with some kind of a fee or something for businesses downtown for using all that city parking and stuff there. Did we ever do anything on that, or did we? We never followed up on that, I don't think, did we?
Good question. Councilmember Helms, I being here prior to when I was city administrator, I recall a few conversations about like a parking lot district or improvement district. I have not spent any time myself on that. I'd need to refresh myself on what that discussion was.
Yeah.
But I would say there probably hasn't been any work done on it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it got very far, but maybe it's something we should start looking at again. That would be a good resource for keeping that parking lot up too.
Thank you, Dale. Or go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. Unless Grand Forks has some sort of policy in place, I highly suggest we don't do that. That's going to drive business away. Those are all restaurants down there. There's the movie theater. Movie theater business isn't as robust as it used to be, and margins for retail and restaurants are pretty razor thin. So I wouldn't want to add additional bills for those folks that they need to try and budget for. So I wouldn't support any sort of like taxing of businesses that use those parking lots. That's an amenity that the city provides.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I feel that, but every other business in town has to have their own parking lot, and they have to take care of it. This one, the city does it all for them. So I understand the whole thing about businesses and that, but I guess what's fair is fair. I'll put it that way.
Sure. Go ahead, Nancy.
Grand Forks does have a pretty robust policy. They have a parking district. They have their ramps that they have to pay for. It's ran through their planning office. That helps with the cleaning. They have people that clean the public streets as well. So I know they have something that's very specific that's charged to pretty much all the businesses downtown.
Yeah, I'm not recommending that they pay thousands of dollars by no means, but we could come up with some kind of a fair solution maybe. So.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, I mean, you don't have to do it so that it exactly pays for everything. But I mean, I pay for striping every year, and I think striping's somewhere around $2,000-3,000, I think, and I pay for all the snow removal for around some of the buildings. So I know that the parking lots are plowed typically. One of the first ones done. So it's yeah, I mean, there's an expense to it, but we don't have to raise enough money to do that. It's just a matter of, and I think when we started looking at it, and I have all the information that I can get to read, it was a matter of what we would charge and whether we would charge per square foot or if we would charge per use or how we would handle it, what would be reasonable. Because you're going from charging them nothing to charging them something, so it wouldn't be something that you would want to, just throw out, at the top end right away. But I know, when Councilmember Bucklew was on, as well as a few others, they were saying, we have to pay to upkeep our parking lots. We have to pay to remove snow. We're doing the work for our businesses, whereas if I would have located downtown, I would have just gotten it for free. So I think there was some questioning as to why we were providing it for free. I mean, it's 800 plus spaces, so.
Yeah, we kind of got off schedule here. I just brought that up to see because we're discussing.
But no, but that it does fall in with that. I mean, that's $30,000 that.
So
on top of.
I didn't think we'd done any more on it. I was just wondering. So.
I'll get that to Reid. I know Mark and I sat down and discussed it. I think it was before COVID, so that changed it a little bit. But yeah, I can get all the information Reid needs. So.
All right, thanks, Nancy.
Yep.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? I think that we should maintain our parking lot. That's our responsibility, and it would be interesting to look into some policies. It's a tightrope to walk to both the points, right? We've got vacant storefronts in this area, so that's not good. And we certainly don't want to drive away any more business, but how do we take care of this? At some point, this 800 stall parking lot is going to need a $2 million reconstruction project. How is that going to get paid for? It'd be good to start to talk about it before we're at that point where it's an emergency. So if you can help us with that, Reid, maybe for some future meetings or leading up to the budget discussion, some long-range planning for that city asset.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else on item 6, we'll go to item number 7 then. Review and discussion of the Simplot Property Development RFP. Ms. Brockling.
Good evening, President, Mayor, and Council. Thanks for taking the time to hear this out. This is for the Simplot property that was recently purchased, and initially I had structured a very specific framework, but after we spoke with Ellers, our financial advisor, they recommended maybe considering a different kind of framework to offer to our developers. They suggested a master development RFP, which is a little more open-ended, in which the developers tell us what they think should go on the property, as opposed to us giving them a prescriptive kind of analysis of what should go on it. So I redid it, and now we have a more open one. I tried to add in things that would help shape the responses of the development proposals, such as information about the space, which I do self-admittedly need to get more information on that subterranean wastewater pipe that we have, just so developers know what they're working with in terms of that restriction. And then I did include in kind of the descriptions of the division, different uses. I did include light industrial. I don't know if that's something that the council wants, so that would be something I would be seeking feedback on. Besides that, it also talks about being a rational design, flexible, financially sound, all the things that we want to see in terms of a successful proposal. And then they would also submit, which I don't know, I may have gotten too carried away in how the proposal requirements are. So if in your feedback you can tell me if it's too much and we should leave it more open-ended to the developers, or if it's just the right amount, but information on each of the parts being phasing, the site work, different sizes of the square footage for the buildings and the parking lots, jobs created, which is important, types of amenities, if there's going to be any information in regards to fixing blight, or if there's options for spin-off industries. And please note that the dates that I put on there are arbitrary. There is no July 41st, but it's to show chronology based on what we decide the timeline should be, because I know that development starts to kind of wind down when the frost starts hitting. So these are kind of arbitrary dates that will align to what we decide. So if you can let me know what looks good, what we should add, timelines, when you would like this to open, if there's any steps or groups of people that we should be considering in this RFP, that would be ideal.
All right, thanks, Maggie. Any questions or comments for Maggie? One question I had, I guess, to start the conversation, as a developer submits their, best use plan for this space, is that idea kept confidential from the other proposers?
Yes, so initially I had, because I borrowed this design from a similar sized community that had a setup, and it had a release for information about it, but since we don't necessarily want everyone's ideas that may not be fully approved to get out, we can keep it quiet. And I don't believe the state overruled NDAs, so I believe as far as that's allowed, we can still offer those.
So whatever is selected by the people that'll be scoring the RFPs, then it becomes public, of course, but there'd be some confidentiality between the proposers.
Right.
I've noticed that it's just natural. If you're competing against someone, you don't really want them to see your best ideas.
Sure.
Right. Okay, great. Any other feedback for Maggie on the RFP? Okay. It's a big milestone.
Yes.
So, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work you put into this. All right. We'll go to item number 8 then. Set daily pool pass rate for senior citizens age 55 plus and military members. Mr. Huttunen.
Okay, thank you again. As the pool is preparing to open, the planned opening day is Thursday, June 4th. And in preparing for the season, meeting with some of the seasonal staff and management, They said that it's been a request in previous summers whether we had a military or a seniors rate. And so just putting that idea forward from those staff, I agreed and thought that was a really good one. So asking to set a senior discount rate for anyone age 55 and older, and for members of the military or their families to receive a dollar discount on the regular price pool rate. And then I did also set on those evenings that we have a family swimming rate, set a couple dollar discount on the family rate for those evenings. So just requesting approval of that before the season begins.
Great, thanks, Reid. Any feedback or comments for Reid on the pool rate discount for senior citizens and military members? Mr. Helms?
Not necessarily a comment on that, but unless I missed it, is there a season pass yet that you can get or not?
Yes, there is a season pass. Yes. Okay. Yeah, and I just didn't include that in the RCA.
Okay.
We weren't looking to adjust those prices at all.
Okay, I was just curious if
the daily rates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a great idea, Reid, so thanks for bringing it forward. Okay, and then item number 9, let me get to that here. Item number 9 here, TIF and tax abatement addition into existing business subsidy policies. Ms. Brockling.
Yes, thank you again. So this is the final draft iteration, and I worked with Gina from Rock, which is our municipal advisor, Todd from Ellers Financial, who is our municipal financial advisor, taken several examples from other communities and done the different trainings that have been offered, and then I merged this in with the state statutes for business subsidies, which we have a current subsidies policy, along with the TIF and the tax abatement state statutes. So some of the key things I wanted to point out about this is I wanted this to be readable for any level of understanding, because sometimes policies and statutes can get very confusing and difficult to understand. So this should be readable. I also made sure to clarify that the risks will not be carried by the city, so we have to pay as you go. It's not going to be more than the 25% total project, and that we won't be doing any bonding for this, that we're trying to keep the statutes, upheld in terms of how the projects go. And we have the grading rubrics which are available, so the goal of it is just to be completely consistent and clear. It's anchored in our policies and standards, so any person can apply that has a airtight plan, and it can be presented and based fairly on our policies and our rubrics. So I guess I'm looking to see if this looks good for your use, and if so, then I'll bring it to the EDA tomorrow for their review as well. And then any edits that you might have, I can merge those in before the public hearing.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Any comments or feedback for Maggie on the TIF and tax incentive policy?
I just have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Maggie.
I appreciate all the work you've done on this. I think it's great. We're going to get this finally in place, and then we can move on from there to see how we can utilize this. So I do appreciate all the work you've done on it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Maggie, a minor one, but I kind of keying in what they do across the river. The expense for the municipal advisor, is that expense assigned to the developer or to the city?
I know what you're talking about, for them to designate it as a tax abatement or a TIF district.
Yeah, the cost for the financial advising work that's done. Maybe that's something to propose to the EDA as well. Who carries that upfront cost for the actuaries and accountants to crunch all the numbers to see if the proposal warrants a tax deferment?
I want to say it gets built into their total project expense, but I will double check.
Sure. Okay. Any further questions for Maggie on the upcoming policy amendment? All right. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda then. I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Riopel, second by Caseme? Helms, okay. Correct the minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes and meeting is closed. Thank you, everyone.